I am nervous. Very dreadfully nervous. But how can you say that I am mad? Listen and observe how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain. For I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. I think it was his eye. Yes, that was it. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Well, now you think I'm mad, but you should have seen me and seen how wisely I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. Every night, about midnight, I opened his door very gently, so not to disturb the old man's sleep. Once in the room, I lit my lantern so very cautiously, so that a single thin ray fell upon his vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights. But I found the eye was always closed, and so it was impossible to do the deed, to kill the old man in his evil eye. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. But on this night, perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Not a second or two passed before the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept silent and still for a whole hour. I did not move a muscle. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I had done night after night. And although he neither saw nor heard me, he could feel my presence in the room. I decided to make just the tiniest little crack in the lantern. As I opened it, a tiny beam of light shot from out the crevice and fell upon his wide-open vulture eye. Then I heard it, the sound of the old man's heartbeat. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme, but the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now, a new fear seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. And finally, it ceased. The old man was dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me to be mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. I worked hastily, but in silence as I dismembered the corpse. I took up 3 planks from the flooring of the room and put the body underneath the floor. I then replaced the board so cleverly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. As the bell sounded the 4 a.m. hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves as police officers. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night, and they had been dispatched to search the house. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I welcomed them in, assuring that the shriek was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was out of the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I placed my own seat upon the 3 boards. The officers were satisfied. My calm manner had convinced them. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But not after long. I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I got a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a louder voice. Yet the sound increased. What could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. I talked more quickly, more confidently, but the noise steadily increased. Was it possible they heard nothing at all? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew.